the Torah has told us up to this point in detail. Just by the way, does everybody know this class is taking place? Is it Shmuley that is he going away? And what about the other guy? Something that Shmuley. Right. So we find that the Torah has told us in detail that in regard to the keeping of the Shnas Shemitah, the sabbatical year, which comes at the end of the Sheish Shonim, of the 6th year, Tizra Sadercha, that you should dafka sow your field and work your field, and on the 7th year, there has to be a Shabbos LaHashem Elokecha. But just by the way, even though the class is not about this, but the reason to know why is it written Shabbos LaHashem Elokecha. It's put down in Sporim that the whole meaning of the Shemitah is not in order to make the earth, if it rests a year, then it gets better, and then it's better for you to sow your crop, you get better produce from the field. Well, the Shabbos is the Shabbos LaHashem Elokecha. The whole thing is purely because of the commandment of Hashem that we let the land rest. Well, not because of reasons that have to do with the tibious avodah of the land. And it's purely a Shabbos LaHashem. And on the contrary, the Ramban is married at the beginning of the Seder. The Ramban is married that the Shemitah is a very high madrega, and it's connected the time of Moshiach. Connected to Yosef Lovei. Just like we find that in the Seder of the week, there's 6 days, and then there's a Shabbos, and there's also Shabbos LaHashem Elokecha. So we find that there's 6 years, and then there's a Shemitah. In the same way we find with the whole creation, there's 6,000 years, and then the 7,000 years is going to be the time of the Geulah, or in whatever particular way that we express it to. Although for putting the Elef HaShavi, that's already not just Yemoisa Moshiach, but the actual time of Moshiach and the Geulah Shleima of the Pascha. So the Ramban says that the Shemitah and the Yovel particularly, they are remez of the Yosef. They occur in Shonim. They're in the same order of what Shabbos is, but they occur in a much bigger bracket, that they indicate the ending of the Yosef Lovei. Therefore, the Yovel particularly is like a double Shemitah. First you keep the Shemitah, and then you move into Yovel. But the Yovel, according to the Zohar Kodesh, is a very high madrega, even from Bina. And Bina, the Pnimis Einyonim, has to do with Olam Haba. And Olam Haba is the Kavanah Olam HaTchiyah, the world of the Tchiyah. Some ways not Olam Haba of Gan Eden, it's also called Olam Haba in certain areas, in certain brackets. And the never said that Ramban, that's why the Shemitah is, we find it's very strict. And therefore Rashi brings down in Parasha Behar, not just Rashi, the Pasuk says it itself, that the whole reason for the Golos was because of the lack of keeping of Shemitah. But so great is it's also put down in Pirkei Avos, that the infant Golos or Odinyonim come into the world because of their lack of keeping of Shemitah. But Shemitah being as it is, connectedly Yosef Lovei, it's like indicatory and maramis of the whole uniform Moshiach. Therefore it's very strict, and therefore the fact they didn't keep the Shemitahs, that's what brought the first Golos. The first Golos of 70. It was 70 years that was connected as a Shemitahs that they didn't keep properly. So Rashi brings down the whole Chesed in Parasha Behar. However, it's mashman also the Golos Achrin has also got to do with the infant Shemitah, and one of the Ikar Inyonim in the bringing the Geulah Shleima is the keeping of Shnas Shemitah with all its halavas and all its things. So therefore it's a very amazing Inyan and a very strict Inyan, and therefore it's brought down in the Teres Kahanim and other places that even Ovak Shvis, even things which are not mamish, also that they have a certain touch or trace next to the core. The dust of Shvis, even Ovak Shvis is very strict and can cause and lead eventually to the Inyan of Golos. So that's what we're talking about now. We've completed the general statement here up to these psukim, the whole basic requirements of lack of work and the details of that both in the Shnas HaShmita and Shnas HaYovel. And then we even began to mention certain other inyan about sale of the land and how that relates to the Shemitah and the return back to the original owners and so on in Shemitah and Yovel. And then all of a sudden the Pasuk begins to make certain, as it were, almost appeasement to the Jewish people for having going through such a tremendous self-sacrifice as keeping the Shnas HaShmita. And so the Pasuk promises that if you keep all these inyanim, then you'll sit in the land safely, like we just said, that Shemitah is a great preservation for that. And then the land will give its fruit, and everything will be in an open and seva, and you will sit safely in the land, and everything will be great. In other words, that the Eibishter promises that in the Schus HaShmita there'll be a perfect state of the giving of the land, everything it can give, and of the preservation of the Jewish people on the land. And according to the Ramban, that makes very good sense. The Ramban is married at the beginning, as I said, about the whole interconnection between Shabbos and the whole inyan of Shemitah, and then the whole inyan of how Shemitah's maranas on the Gula, or the Golas, and the strictness of it when it gets to the Golas, which is connected to Balavochi, the Golas. So, that we've reached and we've established that whole picture. Then comes along the Pasuk and does an amazing thing. The Pasuk comes along and it asks a question. And it says, V'chi soimru. And if you will say, Ma noichal b'shana hashviyah, what are we going to eat during the Shemitah year? Hein loy nizra v'loy ne'asayif es tefu asayna. We're not going to sow, and we're not going to in any way work the land. And so, and even those things which is permitted, like spichim, as Rashi points out, things that just grow on their own, we're also not going to harvest it or take it in any masuda or massive way into the household. So what are we going to live from? How are we going to exist? B'shnas HaShmita. So here we see a rare thing that as a kasha person might ask, what's going to be? Emmy's been promised all these things over the teva or the miz. That if he's not actually doing anything, he doesn't actually see it for but Matthias, that he gets a kasha, what's going to be? So therefore, the Eibusha answers a teretz of the kasha. V'tzivisi es birchosi lochem b'shana hashishi. I will command, literally, my bracha to you on the 6th year. The osos es atavua l'shloish hashonim, and the tavua will be enough on the 6th year. What the 6th year will provide, that'll be enough for all 3 years. Uzratim, and you should sow hashona hashminis va'achaltam min hatvua yoshon, and you'll eat from the old tvua ad hashona hatashiyah until the 9th year. So it comes out of there that the Eibus are making a very what you might call massive bracha, or a massive foretelling of a bracha, that what's going to happen on the 6th year, there's going to be enough to keep you going. So what is this until the 9th year? How do I get to the 9th year? So I'll need enough on Erev Shvi'is and Shisha itself. You also have to stop the work. There's different dinim of what's called Tosefah Shvi'is, which are min HaTorah. The Mishnah and the Yerushalmi learn them out from different psukim in the Torah. So even in the Shishas you're not going to be working already. And then the whole of the Shvi'is you can't do anything. And then you haven't got anything, so there's nothing to really grow on the Shminis at the beginning. So you've got to start sowing only on the winter of Shminis, and that starts growing and coming into a full Tavua in the early summer of the Shminis, of the 8th year. But that's got to sit in the field, and it's got to be gathered and everything. So until you reach the Shana Toshiyas, Tishrei of the 9th year, the beginning of the 9th year, you can't really eat much from the Shnas HaShminiyas either. So therefore you've got 3 years. You've got 6, 7, and 8. That's it. That's how Rashi learns. Kach Rashi Lomed. and Rashi adds that that'll be once every 50 years. One will be the Yovel, then there'll be an extra year in the middle because you'll be keeping the Yovel. Then it'll be 4 years, not just 3. Now the Ramban and other great Meforshim, they learn differently, and they say that the 3 years being referred to here is in the case where there's a Shemitah and a Yovel together, and they learn the whole way that the divine bracha will be given in a slightly different way, and they're medactic in the psukim. That's quite a sizable machlokes in the Rishonim. I don't want to go into it. It's not Rashi is the only pshat. There are other pirushim in the great Meforshim. What are these 3 years? How do they fit into the picture? Well, it's suffice to say that Yidden are going to have a kasha. Whether they'll have the kasha in the 6th year, or whether they'll ask the kasha in the actual 7th year, or they'll be worried about the 8th year leading into the 9th, or whatever will be their worry, but they have a kasha. If we're going to keep the Shemitah in its perfection, what are we going to eat? 1 year is going to be a problem. It'll be the Shemitah itself, or it'll be the 8th year. We're going to be without what to eat. Now that's a very unusual thing, that the Torah should put a kasha into its own mouth, as it were. The Torah actually writes me a kasha. The Torah could have just said, I'm going to give you all these fruits, B'shasa Shemitah, Shivisias Piruchase, I will command my bracha and everything will be fine. Didn't have to put in ki taim rule. And if you guys will say kach v'kach, in other words, why would the Torah want to put a kasha into our mouths, and aliday, and then have to drag you out of your kasha with a promise? Just give the promise melachatchila, and then nobody would have any doubt. In other words, that l'chora Yidden mitzad nefesh elokis, and mitzad Moshe Rabbeinu, mitzad Matan Torah, Rashi learns that these things were also given at Sinai. All the diktukim were given at Sinai. Everything is from Sinai. Everything is mitzad Matan Torah. You didn't know that everything is Davis in charge of the whole world, and he's looking after them in the desert and everything. What have they got to worry about? L'chora Yidden wouldn't have asked any kashas. They wouldn't have any problem if you just said to them, you've got to keep the Shemitah. We'll keep the Shemitah. You've got to keep Iyar. We'll keep a Yovel. And if you want to put it in for good measure, I'll give you a bracha. Don't be concerned. So Yidden might have said to the Avish, look, we're not going to be concerned. We're dealing with you. You know, you're our Avish. You run our world. What you say goes. So the Torah comes along, puts in a kasha to the mind of a nefesh elokis, but a Yidden a kasha, and then it says, no, don't worry. Shivisias piruchose. It's all going to be fine. So isn't that a bit unusual that the Torah should do that? That the Torah should put in a kasha. So, many other discussions about this whole thing. But I want to deal with a certain, like sort of, first of all, I don't know, refer tonight to be Mari, to go into the usual way. And secondly is, the Torah like people don't want to too much of a narichas. So we'll come and we'll pay attention to a certain Kabbalah that's mentioned in many, many Sforim from the great leaders of Chassidus. We have a certain Kabbalah from Rabbi Zushia Me'anipolya to this whole Inyan. I'll soon explain what it is. And you've all heard of Rabbi Zushia, that he was the Alter Rebbe's close colleague amongst the Talmidim of the Magid, and he was together with the Alter Rebbe on several occasions by the Magid and in other functions of their life. And the Alter Rebbe didn't want to print the Tanya. He refused to go to print with the Tanya till he got the Haskama from Rav Zushia, also from the Rav Yehuda Leib HaKoyen, another great Talmud of the Magid. He's less well known, but the Alter Rebbe would not print until he got his. Therefore, at the beginning of the Tanya, you have the little Haskama which Rav Zushia wrote. And on that basis, the Alter Rebbe went in with the actual printing. So, the Rav Zushia is an important figure. Right? He's an important figure in the whole Kabbalah, Derech HaMagid, together with the Alter Rebbe and the whole thing. So, the Rav Zushia begins, he has a slight reference, first off, to there's one of the great early commentators called the Rabbeinu Ovadia Saporno. And the Rabbeinu Ovadia Saporno, he touches briefly, very briefly, because his Lashon is always terse. like many of the great Rishonim. He touches briefly here on our Indian, which is going to come up in Rav Zusha. And this whole Indian of Rav Zusha has become a Kabbalah Klalli when I get to Shemitah. All right. So he says, Ki toimru ma noichal. What are we going to eat? So writes the Sapono, Kashe yusupak ye ze etzlechem. When this will become a doubt by you, what are we going to eat in the Snas Shemitah? V'loi tivtaku shiyu hama'at maspik be'echusei. Now, in other words, that the Sapono is medactic, that the kasha comes before what the Avisa said. The Avisa tivisius berachos, you don't have to worry. That's after you were going to ask the kasha. So what did you think before you asked the kasha? What were you holding before you asked the kasha? Before you asked the kasha, you had just the divine commandment to keep the Shemitah. So what would that mean? That it's not going to be as nach as usual, b'chlalo. You're not going to be working from halfway through the shishis till kamat shiyis. You're not going to be working. So that's going to be lacking. Yeah? But you're a yid and the Abish is running the world. Everything's okay. They said no. However, if you can have a doubt and you will ask, ki teimu, then the Abish is going to command his bracha. And the Abish is going to command the bracha in such a way, that the ayin will see a lot. The Abish will make a lot. At the beginning, you didn't need that. At the beginning, the Abish would make sure that the little bit you will have, that will be enough. And Rashi also brings somewhere here in the Masi, I can't just remember the place. Rashi brings in Parasha Behar Tes that the real divine bracha is that even if you just take a little bit, that'll be plenty for you. You don't need a lot in kamas, just a small amount, and that'll be plenty in your tummy. That will make you feel satisfied. So therefore, that's what would have been. The little bit would have been plenty for everything. However, I'm going to promise command my bracha that it come. What will happen then? It's going to be that the teruah will be enough to the naked eye will see a lot. It will be taking more than what Teva would have demanded. There's going to be a lot. The tiru shiyaspik hakamas. In other words, he has a very interesting shot. He said it could be that the Avish is not going to make a tremendous amount more in the tour, but he's going to make it in such a way that it'll look to you as if it's enough, in the way you would think it would be enough. When you say you, the Nefesh Abami, not the original trust that the Yid would have had, and then you'll see that even though it's not another whole year which will be done properly like the Shemitah and the Shminis of Aranit and the whole thing, you'll see that even though it's going to be a bit less, you'll still see that it'll be okay. There'll be enough. Shiyaspik hakamas. So Rafi follows, but the whole thing's like an amazing lesson in bitachon, in trust. That's what it is. If you don't have bitachon, in other words, that if you hadn't asked any shilas, then everything would have been fine. To say that no problem, the small amount will be enough. I've asked a kasha, I'll command my bracha in such a way that it'll seem to you that everything's okay, but really, what will be happening, that there'll be less, but it'll still be okay, and then you'll realize that ultimately speaking, that small amount is also enough if you're rely on the eggs. That's a very amazing shot in the support. Very amazing shot. And now, Kunta is that in those few words, the support has taught me a whole lesson in bitachon, in the Evishim al-Chatchila, and Kilum b'da'ivit, you wake up yourself, you wake up in the egg. Avamela comes along to the Rav Zusha Miyani, based on after there's other Rishonim and others, there's a whole big arena from the Kli Yoker. He's also very interesting. She was just before the Baal Shem Tov. But it's an arichas, and I can't go into that right now. We'll go straight to Rav Zusha. What did Rav Zusha say? He asked the same question. Why did the Torah put in a kasha into our mouths? And then it said, "Tzivisias peruchosi." Just say, "Malchatchila tzivisias peruchosi," and everybody be happy. Yidden, Nefesh Elokis, they would be happy. So it says Rav Zusha like this. He says that Zicher, if it hadn't been aroused the whole kasha, then Yidden would have been beseder. Yidden would have had any problems. You wouldn't have relied on everything. No, they wouldn't have had any problems. But comes along there, what you might call the Baldova, the Nefesh of Hamis, or the Yetzer Hara, or whatever you like to call him. And he gets into a mess and he says, wait a minute, man, you mean to tell me you're going to sit 6, 7, 8, not really do anything? What are you going to eat so close up? So then he says, oh, he has to kasha, I have to start all over again. Tzivisi es birchosi, I'm going to have to force my brother. Tzivisi, it's an unusual word. Just say birachti, or horikosi es birchosi, notati es birchosi. What's it? Tzivisi es birchosi. Tzivisi, that I'm going to have to start all over again. I'm going to have to force the bracha to go. I'm going to have to command it. I say the bracha would have been perfectly normal. Had you not asked the kasha, you would have been alright and the bracha would have been alright. Everyone would have been alright and the bracha would have been there. If I told you to do something and not work the land, I'm not going to look after you. I'm going to let you starve there. I've had it, it's going to be a tremendous bracha. But you ask a kasha, there's an issue. You ask a kasha, you fell from your madrega. You ask a question, then you fall from your madrega. I'm going to have to start again. And my brothers not want to go now. This is what I go to these people. I have to tzivisi, I have to force my bracha. And therefore, it's not going to be as great as it would have been, but it'll still be okay. It'll still be all right. And that's something like this upon it. It's got something similar to all this. So, from Tois Lafis there, that everything would have been fine. Everything would have been wonderful. Yidden would have been fine. Yidden would have been wonderful. Everything would have been happy. Everybody would have been happy. Oh, this is good. And there's absolutely no doubt about it. Hashem would look after everybody and everybody have plenty. I can miss the kasha. You can ask a kasha. Those things, you're falling down. So you're back deep into a sort of a rut of teva again. Like this Pona said, we don't know how this is going to really work. A little bit's really going to be enough. Really? He said, I have to start all over. I have to start all over again. Tzivisi es birchosi, and it'll just be Klalli Marish. It'll be sort of, not like it would have been originally, but tzivisi. So you can imagine what sort of bracha I have to command it. It's not a full bracha, but it's ultimately speaking my bracha. And I'll have to support it. And then you'll wake up that if you only been a chacham from the beginning, you would have been happy. So, that's how some of the Meforshim bring down the Reb Zusha. That's how some of them. However, the Reb Zusha had a brother. He had a famous brother called the Reb Elimelech Milzhensk. Now, the Reb Elimelech Milzhensk, he was also a Talmud of the Maggid, but he came to the Maggid later. Reb Zusha got to the Maggid before him. On the contrary, Reb Zusha was instrumental in bringing his brother with a great Talmud Chacham to the Maggid. So the Alter Rebbe doesn't seem to have known the Reb Elimelech all that well. He must have known him, but he certainly heard about him and everything. But that doesn't seem to have been a great kasha. But the Reb Elimelech became very, very great, and he became like the mocker of many of the great Polish chassidim. So many of the great Polish chassidim go back originally to the Reb Elimelech, and they claim that he's their Rebbe. And therefore, the Polish is called the Reb Elimelech, the Rebbe from the Rebbes. He's the Rebbe of all the Rebbes. I won't go now into the whole chronological history, but and he and Reb Zusha were brothers. So he's got a sefer, the Reb Elimelech, called the Noam Elimelech. Yeah, the Noam Elimelech is a famous sefer. So I looked up in his sefer what he says about this posse, and sure enough, he brings his brother. He quotes his brother, and he says, "Me'ache ha'mefusam lechasidus." He's mefusam lechasidus. And he brings basically what Rav Zusha says, but he brings it with a slightly different twist, and it helps us to understand And it's very common in these great commentators and great authorities that when they quote a certain basic principle, they quote it in slightly different ways, and they come from slightly different angles. But ultimately, it's the same message, but it's got a different, what you might call Musa Haskell. So, he quotes Rav Zusha as having said like this. Rav Zusha starts off much the same. He said, if he wouldn't have asked any questions, everything would have been fine. That's for sure. But, what does he say? He says that every created being, every year that's created and brought down, and Hashem of Begur, has got his own special pipeline. That's what he calls it, a tzinoer, his own special pipeline, a panos. And the Eibishter is mischayev in sending his neshama into the world that he'll give it panos. It's a problem. Neshama's going to be in a guf, and a guf needs panos, and it's a problem. So therefore the Eibishter gives everybody a tzinoer, and everybody has their pipeline, but they'll have what they need. As long as he doesn't get in the way. Chas Shalom, if he does things which are not what Hashem wants, then he can interfere, and he can cause a bilbul in his pipeline. But as long as he's, in the inverted commas, okay, then Hashem looks after him, and that's what we find many great elders used to say, oh, look, I'm not worried, Hashem is going to help, and Hashem will help him. Why? Because they knew that they had their pipeline, and they knew, and that's what we say in Benchen, Hazanas or Elam Kulei, Betuvei, Bechein, Bechesed, Berachamim, Neisen Lechem Lechol Basar. But that's mashma, even to the rest of the world, to also Elam, to everything. That's key on agreement with the creation that Hashem spoke. If I'm not you as a yid, you've got your own special part. Everything fine. I berega with you have a kashya, and you say to the Eivishter, you ask Eivishter kashya when he's looking after you, and he's providing with everything you need, and he's living up to his agreement. All of a sudden you miss a crop, you mix it, and you say to the Eivishter, ki toim ma neichel b'shona shona hashvias, what are we going to eat? Yeah. So what happens is you cut off that pipeline. That's what he does. You cut off your pipeline. What's going to be? You left out a pipeline. Tax is not good. So the Eibishter has Rahmanas on him. And he says, well, I've cut off that pipeline, but I'll start a new one. Let's start all over again. But I'm going to have to force it. It's a little bit missed. I'm not particularly pleased with the situation, and it's not going to be exactly like it was before. CVC is perfect. I have to command my body, I have to push it, I have to go and we'll look after you. You'll have it, and whatever you need, you'll also have it. It's the same, right? And remember, that's how the rebellion Melizans, that's how he quotes the Rav Zusha. That's how he quotes. Remember, many other Sforim, if you look up, Kimat in all Polish and Siddish Sforim, in Parasha Behar, they mention the Rebbe. It's a big cloud. And they say it all in slightly different ways, and they bring it even to the quite later ones just before the war. And they all bring the Rav Zusha. It's a cloud godlum that Hashem looks after you. Don't ask any questions. Music Mistarai. Don't al titarev. It's like the same thing with a Rebbe. A Rebbe knows what he's doing. He knows how to look after you. If you do what the Rebbe wants, the Rebbe will look after you. Nishtarai. Don't come along and Rebbe, what's going to be with me if I do this? For example, there was a case in the early years of the Messias of the Rebbe. There was one of the Choshev Shluchim, but eventually went out and became quite a Choshev Shliach. The Rebbe called him in, and he lived in Crown Heights at the time. And he was a couple of years after his marriage, and he was Masuda a bit in life, and he was okay. He was doing something there in business, he was learning a bit. And the Rebbe called him in, and the Rebbe said, listen, we need a split to go out to this and this. In those days, the Rebbe used to tell people, essentially. And so he says, Rebbe said, I have Kalim Noam, Dira Noah. He said, I've got a Dira Noah, Kalim Noam here. I'm okay. What do I need to go out there for? So the Rebbe just sort of looked at him and said, oh, you're okay? Okay. If you're okay, then okay. Lo dibanko. So I went through a few days, and all of a sudden he helped himself what he'd done, and he realized that after he told him to go and play, and he said, "I got Kalim Noim, but Dira Noim." So he had tremendous charata, and eventually he got back into Yechidus, and he asked the Rebbe for Machila to forgive him. And in the end, they came to an agreement. Exactly what the Rebbe said to him on that occasion, I don't know. But eventually he went out on sleep. He did eventually go, and he became from the well-known shluchim. So it could be that he did fix it up with the Rebbe some way. But you don't mish around with a Rebbe. A Rebbe, yeah, he's just like that. He knows what your pipeline is, and he'll look after your pipeline. Don't have to worry. Hey, come over, Akasha. What's going to be with my deer? No, okay. So the Rebbe said, okay. Nothing happened. But it did happen. Whatever it is, let's start all over again. Who knows what it's that? It's Kalamerism. The loser. That's a very big cloud. Out Mishnish. Don't mix it. Rabbi knows what he's doing. You leave it up to him. The same thing. It's tzaddikim daimon labayram. The same with the Eivishter. Don't. If they have to start all over again, the Eivishter has to command these people.